I know what my role is. And I know that as a quarterback, I had to do a lot of things, oversee a lot of things. I had to be a pinnacle, the face, the guy that was consistent day in and day out. But I also had to rely on my left tackle and my receiver to do their job too, and the GM to do his job, and the janitor to get our locker rooms clean and make sure guys weren't just making a mess because, oh yeah, he's going to clean it. Like, there's so much that goes into that I've learned, what my role is. What more you can do, the better, when you can step up and fill the role of somebody else. And so that's what we've been doing. We're putting the Michael Love juice in the Umbo bottles now, which is really cool. And I go out there to the farm every once in a while. So the mushrooms that I'm helping, inoculate and grow and dehydrate, they're going into these bottles. So that the story is there that I really care about this. And my business acumen is not high when it comes to the CPGs and ROIs and all those acronyms. I kind of like, hey, excuse me, what do you mean by that? I'll ask those questions, but I'm learning as I go. And I know, like, when you believe in something and you have the right people around you, that success is bound to come your way. And that's the way I feel with the guys we've put in our team. The team is the most important thing, is having guys that really believe and are willing to do the work.
You're listening to the Born Primitive Podcast.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Primitive Podcast. How we doing, Tony?
Morning. Well, afternoon. Good
afternoon
yeah.
For us, a morning airing, depending on when they're tuning in.
True.
And I'm actually drinking pre-workout during a podcast, so we'll see how this goes. Because I'm gonna go hit my pump right after this. So I gotta get
that
in the
heart
blood.
rate slowly elevating.
If I start itching my face in about 30 minutes, that's why. But really pumped for today's guest, particularly for me being a football guy. We have Jake Plummer on the podcast today. Most of you, he probably doesn't need an intro, but for those that aren't sports nerds like us, Jake was a very successful quarterback. And I'll just read the bio here. Played at Arizona State. Led them to a Rose Bowl berth, 1996 Pac-10 Player of the Year, third in Heisman voting, set a bunch of school records, played 10 seasons in the league, mostly with the Cardinals, was also a Pro Bowl selection with the Broncos in 2005. And since then, off the field, Jake has founded the Jake Plummer Foundation to support Alzheimer's research and co-founded Ready List Sports, a digital playbook tool. He also advocates for causes like Athletes for Care and the Pat Tillman Foundation, and co-founded Umbo, a company promoting the use of functional mushrooms for health and recovery. And Jake and his team were kind enough to create a promo code for all the listeners, so you can use Born15 at their site. And we'll put the everything in the show notes, so you get this. That'll get you 15% off. And make sure you follow Jake on Instagram at Snake Plummer. But Jake Plummer, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's an honor to be on your show, and kind of did a little research and seeing what you guys are up to. So congrats on all your success and having a voice, to get out and speak on something good. And that's what you guys are doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to jump on with you guys. As you mentioned earlier, a couple former meathead college sport athletes, and we dumb jocks get a bad rap, but a lot of us are pretty advanced, doing some really cool stuff. So glad I could be on the show with you guys.
Well, we appreciate those words, Jake. And I think, obviously there's a lot of directions we can go with this, but I think for Tony and I, we would love to kind of fast forward to, retirement for you and transitioning out of the NFL. I think one of the things we've talked about a lot in this podcast is like kind of life transitions. And I know, since I know some NFL guys, and I think it's similar for, in the special operations community, when you transition out of the service, that transition period could be a little bit difficult, right? Particularly for some guys, maybe in the NFL, you're used to being recognized and you're kind of the man and you're on this pedestal. And then all of a sudden the league ends and, you're on to the next chapter, and there's maybe a little bit of identity search there. Not to say that happened with you, but could you walk us through, kind of what led to retirement, and then maybe a year or two after, and how you dealt with that transition and what kind of gave you that new purpose?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many parallels to, what we deal with post-career as athletes and as service members for our country, whether that's the military, the Navy, whatever it may be. You're part of such a strong community of people that are all so motivated to reach that goal, to get go out with a goal or a destination or whatever it is, a game, an operation, whatever you have to do. And you're working together with these guys around you. So there's such a brotherhood that's built there that lasts forever. And when you leave the game, there's a big gap. There's something missing. And for me, when I was in the game, I wasn't putting thought into what am I going to do 5 years out the game, or maybe I should start studying this so that when I get out of the game, I'll be able to transition into whatever it may be. It's not really allowed because you're on such a fine, like a razor sharp edge. Obviously, it's not a life and death situation. We do make out our football game that has become really a kind of like a religion here in America. We use a lot of terms similar to what we would use as fighting, going out and fighting, and this is a battle. We use a lot of similar terms that you would use in real combat where your life is at stake. So, you guys as servicemen and serving in our country, thank you for that. But you come out, you're in a different level than we are as athletes, but the same kind of same things are formed. There's a brotherhood, there's a connection, there's a goal that's there. There's people pretty much telling you what to do all the time. Most of your life is laid out in front of you, and then when it's gone, you're like, wait a sec, I gotta wake up and take the trash out on Thursdays. I got to go try to remember to work out. What's my workout? And unless you're highly disciplined and have practiced those characteristics or practice that as a person, it can be very challenging. Throw in the pain, throw in the body aches, throw in sometimes your spirit's just been squashed because you were kicked out of the game. You were not good enough. You're too old. You're too slow. Maybe you didn't handle your money well, or maybe you married that sweetheart that loved you for the wrong reasons. I mean, there's so many things that go into that transition, and we're seeing, sometimes the ugly side of it, but we're also seeing a real positive side of it where there's actually some work being done for guys to go address those issues.
Did it take you some time, Jake? Did you feel like you could, and I know you said you certainly at the beginning of your career weren't thinking about what am I going to do 5 years after, but when you first retired, had you at that point reached a point in your life where you were ready for that transition, or did you really have to start small and kind of start to put together some building blocks to build some momentum outside of football?
Yeah, when I was done, I wanted to be done after 2005. I thought we were going to go, and we had a hell of a team. We lost in the AFC Championship game at home. I mean, that was my chance as a young kid with the dream to play in the Super Bowl. There it was. I was like, oh man, if I do this, why do I need to play anymore? My body's getting beat up. I've been paid way more than I ever thought I'd ever get paid to play this silly game. I was ready to go. So mentally, physically, spiritually, I had already given it some thought. And then that last year came around, and I played that year. And then I knew it was time to go. My body was hurting at age 31. I was hurting and taking anti-inflammatories and just not healthy. And I hadn't really given it much thought as what is next. I wanted to leave the game with the ability to play and still go run around and still have my wits about me, my body in shape enough to go and play like a sport like handball. So I had a good transition right out of the game. I went right into, playing handball. In fact, my press conference announcing my retirement was at the Denver Athletic Club, and I was getting ready to go play in the state doubles tournament with my brother. So, I made an announcement. I said, "Hey, I'm pleased. Thank you, everybody. This has been a wild ride. I got a match. I got to go play." So that helped the transition, having something with competitive, with the camaraderie and the ability to go stay in shape and go. But I didn't really give thought to anything outside of that. I wanted to get away, so I moved to the mountains of North Idaho, lived there with my girlfriend, fiance. We got married. We started having kids. We traveled around the world. It did all the things that I was limited on, that I couldn't do or couldn't find the time to do when I was signed up to play ball and really represent as the face of these billion-dollar organizations, represent them well and be there and be that leader. So there was definitely some transition, and when it really hit me the hardest was when I had to have my hips operated on. I'd had a little injury to my low back, and it was caused through some inefficiencies in my hips. And having those surgeries and the labrum reattachment and the microfracture in both hips, it really set me down like, what the hell was I thinking playing this long? Was this really worth it? And right around then was when Junior Seau took his life. And he ended up, he shot himself in the chest so that they could research his brain, and all this talk of CTE. And it started to like weigh on me, like, holy smokes, I went into a pretty deep depression, of like, why did I do this? Am I going to be okay? And what's going on? And, people show up at the right time. And I had some friends show up in that moment. And so it set me on this path to here. But there was definitely the transition. It was difficult. Our egos are so inflated as athletes. You're given so much, and you're always taken care of. And being a quarterback is the pinnacle of that in the NFL. I mean, I snap my fingers and I get it, and people are there. And I never took advantage of that, and I always appreciated the people around me. And I'm feeling the love and all that come full circle now as being removed from the game for almost 20 years. So I'm glad at how I carried myself, but it's hard to fill that gap. You see a lot of guys that can't. I've been just fine being able to go out and just be one with the fans, be one with the people, be one with nature, and find my path. And it's taken some time, but I'm here at this moment. I couldn't have planned this. To be on your podcast, doing what I'm doing is definitely a gift and really a lot of fun.
Well, I'm curious with the NFL as an organization, have they adopted like programs and ways to help guys like transition out of the league? And for the casual listener, that might sound ridiculous of like, oh, well, what's the big deal? These guys are getting paid millions of dollars, and like, what do they need to transition out of? But when you really think of it, it is a wild adjustment, because I've spoken with a lot of these guys, right? And we've already kind of mentioned some of the reasons, but yeah, you go from this crazy structured life where everyone is telling you exactly where you need to be, and you got personal trainers and you got coaches and everything's kind of structured out, in a given year what the exact schedule is, right? Down to the week. And you get used to that rhythm of life, when July rolls around and August, what's coming, and then all of a sudden that goes away. And depending on how recognizable you are, maybe people start to slowly not recognize you like they used to when you were, on TV all the time. And, particularly obviously like the linemen and stuff, like they don't get much love, a guy like you, Jake, obviously that probably, continued. But, for some of those guys, like, there's some big defensive linemen, like they're not getting recognized when they go to that steakhouse in their hometown anymore. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious because in the military community, while some guys are bad at taking advantage of those programs, they've at least made an attempt to help people out with finding jobs. And okay, here's how you tweak your resume, and here's how you interview, and here's how you find purpose in the next chapter. But I would imagine, this is just a guess, in the NFL, they're probably not as concerned about that as an organization, and maybe they just kind of cut you loose. And when you get cut from the team, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, people, when I say I don't have insurance through the NFL, we have to pay for our own. They're like, wait a second. And our Cobra coverage lasts for 5 years post retirement, and then you're on your own to have your own health care. And of course, I made a lot of money. I can pay for my health care, but there are a lot of guys on that 52-man roster. If you take the top 10% that earn the money, those other 42 guys, they make good money, but they also live the lifestyle that is presented them. And sometimes they don't plan for their future. So they're broken, they're beaten, they have all these health issues, and they don't have a 10-year HRA account like I have that's got a couple $100,000 in it that can pay for some of these bills and pay for some of these services. And yes, the NFL does a good job they've done a better job lately of providing us with services. But for me personally, I don't take pharmaceuticals, so I don't use the debit card for pharmaceuticals. So what do I get to use? Nothing. I don't have help for my path to wellness. And that kind of, we'll get into it as we go, it's kind of what I'm working towards, is trying to find a way to open up the door for a holistic alternative form of medicine or health that I've reached, that I know a lot of other players are seeking, because they understand the long-term detrimental side effects of pharmaceuticals. And they know, like, okay, I mean, I just turned 50 and my body feels good, but I know where I know where I'm holding, injuries that I sustained during my playing days. I've done a lot to rid my body of a lot of that pain and inflammation, but I know where there's some that are going to remain, because I've been active too since I retired. I didn't just go play golf. And I definitely didn't want to play golf with that orange flag on my cart that allowed me to drive all over the course. Like I saw guys doing that, former players doing that, and that was scary. Like, hell no, I don't ever want to not be able to go jump on a trampoline or go hike around in the woods or run and jump up and grab a branch and do some chin-ups. I mean, that's just a desire of my own. And so there is support. The NFL has been trying, they will listen to the former players. So that's part of my mission and goal is to try to create a different path to health and wellness, somewhat centered around giving these former players a little hope and faith that there's something to help their brains, because that's really the big issue when you talk post-career. Guys can go and limp around and be all right without being able to run and play again. It's their brains they worry about. And that to me is the most important thing. And then, one more point to what you make about like being forgotten as a player. Some guys just want to be a normal person again and not be always remembered as, oh, you're that guy, or wherever you go, like to not have any anonymity, to not be able to go out and not get interrupted by people coming to your table or people interrupting you saying, hey, sorry to bother you and interrupt you, but I'm going to anyway. They do it. And that's all great. I love all that love that comes back to me now. But some guys just want to be anonymous and go back to being a little bit less of a badass gladiator warrior, kick your ass football player, and go back to just being that soft-spoken, gentle giant that they know that they are. And so that's almost not allowed in our culture and in our bro culture of the NFL. It's like almost not allowed to show that you're just a big sensitive guy that has teddy bears and wants to cry and watch, the rom-com movies at home. You're like, there's nothing wrong with that. And so that acceptance and finding guys to bring out, to accept what we want to be and who we are now is really a challenge, I believe, more than anything, is to just be who you are. And if it's not about football, that's okay. But if it's all about football, that's okay too. And there's so many parallels with the military and former players that, we're finding some crossover there, being able to help not only NFL players, but also vets find what's next, find how to cope with that. You're missing that getting announced and running out on the field in front of 75,000 people. Like, holy shit, that is hype. Like, that's amazing. I'll never witness that again. I'll never feel that again. So what do I do to replace that? There's really nothing you can do to replace that. You just have to accept it and move on and understand life is beautiful as it is.
Well, and Jake, what type of traction, and you'll see where I'm going with this, what type of traction are you getting with the NFL on kind of those alternative modalities? Because, and I told Bear before we hopped on that this was an avenue I'd love to go down is I've been a huge advocate for psilocybin for, it's been 13 years now, and to see it evolving within kind of the macro ecosystem, not only on places like our podcast, where it feels like every other guest we're having a conversation about how much it influenced their life, whether it be at like a transitional state or individuals who use them kind of on a, say, once or twice a year basis. And then Bear is starting to dip his toe and actually is going to a psilocybin retreat in February. That's completely centered around transitioning veterans out of the team. So I know it's something you're open about, and I'd love to talk about it, because when you brought it up with the NFL, I know a lot of professional athletes, more that are in even like the MLB and a couple that are also in the NFL, that can be such a huge catalyst for not only healing, like you said, the brain side of things. There's a lot of good research coming out about not just psilocybin, but psychedelics in general, whether it's ayahuasca or ibogaine. But are you seeing kind of that start to shift too, as somebody that's baked in that culture? And do you think that's something that realistically the NFL could help support? Because there's a lot of in the military community, there's actually a lot of foundations now that are going or hopping on board and kind of supporting sending individuals, especially as they're transitioning, or somebody that's had something, maybe like a brain injury or something happen in their career, to these facilities, which stinks that a lot of times, or most of the time now, they have to be outside of the United States. But is that something you could see the NFL eventually getting on board with?
Sure. That would be really cool to see them get on board, but they're not going to lead the charge. but the players can, and certain individuals with the ability to step out and step in front of it and talk in a way that they are experienced and knowledgeable, and let people know, for us, we struggle at UMBO with functional mushrooms and psychedelics. People still think, oh, Jake Plummer, yeah, he's selling us microdoses and psilocybin mushrooms. And like, no, I have a firm belief and understanding of them as the medicines that they are, and they're beautiful, beautiful medicine that have been used forever. And now they're coming out here now. And, you mentioned a lot in your question. And if I could, I met Marcus Capone, who works with Vet Solutions, and they're doing some amazing work with Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, and trying to get some clinical data behind ibogaine and its ability to reset your receptors for addiction therapy. And like, okay, I have a hard time with the way our world works, that we need to spend $10 million and collect all this data for 2 years. Well, how many people are going to die in that time from addiction? Instead of just, this works. If you're being called to it, where can I go to safely get this? Where can I go to get good information that's not driven by economics or capitalism, but it's driven by people's hearts and their souls that want to help people that are struggling and fighting for their lives and their families and all this. And so, you mentioned players and players reaching out. I've had a lot of players reach out to me. Obviously, they know what I'm doing with functional mushrooms, and sometimes they're confused, as I think functional mushrooms play as much a part in this healing process as do psychedelics, because it's something you can do daily, and there's no illegalities, and they're accessible right away, and they're just good for your overall body and your wellness and the way your body functions. Throw in some psilocybin there for that conscious reset to become one with everything again. And the mix of the both can be a very powerful combo to put you on your path. As some of these guys you mentioned, I know the military vets go through the real deal. They're seeing things that people only see on movies. They're seeing it in real life. So they're dealing with like real life trauma coming out of serving for our country. And it's sad that they're medical refugees here in America. They have to go to Mexico to find this healing. And it should piss you off. If you care about a veteran and you say that about the vets, you should stand up right now and call your local government and say, what the hell are we doing? What is this? Why are we doing this to our soldiers who created the freedom in our country? Now they have to fly to Mexico. They're medical refugees in our own country. Like, there are people who are medical refugees in Indiana because they live in Indiana, and the laws there are still stuck with the Nixon era in the 70s of, these organisms, natural organisms, being listed as Schedule 1, on the drug list. So players in the NFL come out of the game with a different things than veterans that have seen real life and death. We still have PTSD, we still have anxiety, depression, but some of these kids too played the game to push away traumas they experienced as young kids growing up. So, these psychedelics have a way to reset you, to make you go in and become okay with the traumas you've been through. And we're progressing in the right way. Where it goes, I don't know. Is it going to be legal? Is it going to be recreational? I think it's going to be therapeutic in a lot of ways. And I think that the players in this are going to be less about capitalizing and more about, hey, let's make sure we do this right for humans, for everybody in our country to have hope and faith that there is a solution out there. And if we can get to there, then things are good.
That's something I'm passionate about, is because I actually see, as somebody who's pretty seeped in that community as well, I see kind of two camps forming. And I love what you said of like, there is the typical kind of corporate, just money driven, that is forming as well. And I think it's something for people in the space to be keenly aware of, is that, hey, there is, as we all know, there's a money factor behind things, and the numbers have to add up. And if you're running a business, I get it, but like, there is a more spiritual realm of this whole thing. And I would say that's the most important thing. And I think if you approach these medicines with that being the priority, and then of course the financials need to make sense, that's the way to structure this into the future. But I will say, just as kind of a warning sign, as this field, and I always bend bear's ear about it, is like, this field is forming and it's going to boom here in the next 5 years. be careful, because there are some players that I wouldn't even call it, they're not malicious, but they're just viewing this purely from how much money can we make. And what you're doing is you're taking the spirit of these plants and just stripping what the actual value add is. And of course, can there still be benefits? Of course. But like, as you said, these things have been used for thousands, if not, I mean, tens of thousands of years. And what you're doing is removing all the tradition, all of the kind of like the heartfelt, you use the word heart, like emotion surrounding how impactful these medicines can be, and then you're just commoditizing it in a way that's just meant to be like a pharmaceutical at that point. So it's just something I always like caveat as for any individuals in the space, and you did a great job of lining it out as well, is like, be weary, because both are going to pop up, and I just think we should, as advocates, put our money and attention to the ones that are doing it the right way.
100%. And that's, what we started Umbo for, was a lot of companies were coming into the market selling mushroom products. And then you go read how much is in there, and it's just, we called it pixie dusting. It's like, yeah, there's 15 milligrams of this in this product. We're calling it mushroom coffee. That's great. 15 milligrams is better than 0. But if you take these and you take the right amount, you can actually feel the benefits. And so, that's why we started Umbo, is to really set the bar high. And, to go back on, I met Dale Jolly, my business partner and best friend with Umbo at Charlotte's Web. They did that with their hemp oils, and what they did to help children with seizures, and what they've done and continue to do to bring people to this natural form of healing. I'm lucky that this isn't just brand new to me in the last 10 years. My family, my mom, my grandma was a vegetarian. My mom was giving us garlic and honey and echinacea, and not allowing us to have sugar cereal and soda way back in the day. Tofu in our waffles. I mean, my mom was legit, and making like tinctures that are for, the tonics that are full of all kinds of good, healthy stuff for fighting off and building your immune system. And, this isn't new to me, but it's been a really fun venture into it. And I really want to hold these organisms with reverence, which what I feel mushrooms may be like the mother of most of these living organisms on this planet. I almost think, I do think, and I try to, the best I can, treat them like I would my mother. I mean, if I'm going to bring my mom out and we're going to benefit and capitalize, I'm going to make the muffins with my mom to sell at the bake sale. I'm not just gonna be like, Mom, make these muffins, get your ass out there and make us some money. Like, there's a lot that goes into holding these organisms that have been around long before we were, with reverence, and treating them right. And obviously there's going to be people capitalizing. The worry is like, people hear something like ibogaine and they think, oh yeah, let me go get some of that. Like, no. This is very, very intense medicine that you have to have a doctor and nurse and be hooked up to. This is not just a psychedelic like psilocybin. Psilocybin, yes, you can take and go to a concert or go outside, and like, it's a really safe intro. But even then, it's like with intention and in setting. And if you really want to hold these as not party drugs, but as ways to heal, then we have to, as an entire culture, shift the way we view a lot of how we consume things.
Well, yeah, for anyone listening, and I'm guessing maybe you've listened to it, Jake, but Tony got me onto it. But the recent Rogan episode, and by the time this airs, it won't be so recent. But if you just go to the Governor Perry episode and Brian Hubbard, is that
Hubbard? Yeah. Yep.
That episode was absolutely fascinating. I mean, holy shit! And the way Brian Hubbard just narrated it. I mean, I want to hire that guy to do a voiceover for a Born Primitive video.
Yeah. That dude didn't say or no. I mean, he was just.
I was screaming. Like, is this a recording? Like, did this guy do this in a voice? I mean, that dude is out of a movie. If you don't mind,
I'd like to rewind. Yeah. It was literally as if it was like the beginning to a movie.
It was a 40-minute monologue of the. I was sitting in the gym parking lot. I should have gone in, but I like listened for 40 minutes straight. In my, you know what I mean? I'm like, that dude had me. But anyway, for the listeners, go check that out, because it sheds a lot of light on particularly ibogaine. And what it can do for substance abuse and people with suicidal ideations and things like that, and just how crazy some of those results have been. I mean, and I'm going to make a prediction. It sounds like Texas is going to spearhead the effort. It was Kentucky, and then they fumbled it. Texas is going to take it on, but I think if they can fast track that, I think it could be a real feasible thing. And I hate that it has to be this way, but they mentioned this in the podcast, is like the fact that they're doing it around veterans will make it more palatable for like some of these more conservative and just like old school dudes, like kind of like the governor,
For sure.
right? That's how he got introduced through, like Marcus Luttrell and those guys you mentioned. Hopefully if we have to kind of leverage that veteran card to open it up for everyone else, because of course it's not just veterans that can benefit from that medicine. But I hope it gets fast tracked, and then it becomes like, hey, if you're a state that's not doing this, you're missing out, right? And I think, like we talked about, the states will probably selfishly see an economic opportunity, but I'm okay with that if it gets it going. But then there's the drawback of once big pharma's involved, and then you're mass producing these treatment centers, and then the facilitators aren't experienced because you can't mass produce those people. Then maybe you have a diluted product, and then people are chasing it for the wrong reasons. So eventually maybe there's that overcorrection, but I think just getting it available is phase one. And I hope that happens, because it sounds like it just can do fascinating things for people.
It'll probably become similar to, like, think of the food industry as like, but that's why I think the right people being advocates for doing it the right way, it'll become like, hey, there is the McDonald's of these treatment centers, but then there's the ones that are very health conscious and health focused, that if you have strong ideals surrounding or values surrounding the space, you would never go to the McDonald's one, which is the cookie cutter, just burn them, put them in here one day, get them out. Like, there will be ones where it's like, hey, no, these are the ones you get in. There's pre-integration, there's post-integration. And then while you're staying there, the foods you're eating, the foods you eat leading up to it, like everything is taken care of. Everything is kind of voiced to you in a way that makes it this very robust plan, which is, at least from my experience, that's the way it should be. So I think it probably is inevitable to see a spectrum of different offerings. But I think with the right people, I mean, people like Jake out there kind of putting the good word out there, that individuals will realize, like, yeah, I don't, even if it's cheaper, even if it's a little more accessible, like, I'm not going to just go do the cookie cutter version of this, because there can actually be negative effects to that as well, kind of treating it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think of it as human rights. I mean, we as humans on this planet, and what you guys have served our country for is for us to have the right to choose, right? We have the ability to make choices for ourselves. And I think health is one of those that you should definitely be able to take into your own hands. And if I want to choose here in the state of Colorado to sit with my friends and take psilocybin, I will not risk persecution. If I go a state over, I could go to prison. So to me, that's not right. It's human rights are at the core of this. And it's not Democratic or Republican. It's bipartisan. It's across the board, because no one, whether your religious or political affiliation, whatever it is, addiction can hit you and it's over. And so you're right. This is going to happen. It's in Texas. I got a chance to have a conversation with Brian just recently, and it was really amazing to hear him talk and speak, and like their goals and their ambitions. And accessibility is really the key thing. It's what we battle with UMBO. Is like, man, we're making we're growing these mushrooms, we're extracting them, we're putting them in a bottle, and we're charging people. How can we charge them less? Like, that's not a great business model, but it's accessibility. How can we make the very best product, the most potent, high quality that you can find anywhere on the market, and also make it the most affordable, so that everybody has a chance to have this, that you don't have to budget and cut out something else just to put this into your diet. And so it's a new form of conscious capitalism. It's a new form of the way you run your businesses. And, I heard you guys on your podcast talking about, the money you raised during Black Friday to pay off veterans' debts. Like, it's that stuff that should be screamed across the mountaintops, so people know, like, yeah, that didn't hurt us at all. That actually helped us. We're killing it now. And we helped so many people in need that definitely need this. And so kudos to you guys for setting the tone on stuff like that. And hopefully, as these medicines become available, they're done right with integrity. So people, one, feel safe and they have access to them.
And Jake, for the listeners, because for a nerd like myself, like distinguishing between psychedelics and then functional mushrooms, or the ones you're doing, which are non-psychoactive, cordyceps, lion's mane. For me, that's right in my vocabulary, but I understand too, for the normal everyday person, like that may be just two worlds they're not, or one world they're not exposed to at all. So for you, kind of give a brief description of the difference between the two, and then where kind of Umbo lands on their product offering within the non-psychoactive mushrooms.
Yeah, I mean, we are a company that got started, like I said. Dell and I worked with Charlotte's Web, which we felt was one of the best, still is one of the best, most potent, well-intentioned, with grown with integrity and everything, hemp oil that you can find on the market. So when we started our company, I was not going to go and just put something in a bottle and call it my own. I wanted to believe in it, and after a couple of years during the pandemic of taking these tinctures from another company, I realized the benefits and found my body feeling better, my mind functioning better, my body overall working better than it had in the past, and making me really aware of what I'm putting into my body too. So there's more than just take these mushrooms and keep eating McDonald's and drinking shitty beer and like doing your thing. I mean, you might feel a little bit, but it's kind of it's a really good intervention into taking your health into your own hands. And we deal with most of the common mushrooms you'll hear. We started with a bar, a nutritional like energy bar that you can take anywhere. As athletes and people working out and our busy schedules, there's a lot of bars to choose from. Some of them have good stuff in them, and they're good enough to eat. They're tolerable. We wanted to put a lot of good into it, 2.5 grams of functional mushrooms, but then make it like something you crave that tastes really good. And we pulled that off. We mixed in 2.5 grams of mushrooms in our bars, 2 offerings. One is dairy free. The other one's not, but it has walnuts and pecans, and then 5 different types of mushrooms in them. And then they're your basic cordyceps, which, cordyceps is a vasodilator. It initiates ATP, which is oxygen to your blood for that response of fight or flight. And also just it's being researched to do many, many other things. Most importantly, give you energy and help you push your wind wall. There's turkey tail, that is also a beautiful mushroom, grows prolifically in the Northwest and all over, really. But it's good for your gut health. It's been used in Japan to treat breast cancer patients undergoing chemo and radiation. And the studies there have shown an extension of life post radiation and chemo with the use of turkey tail during it. So you're living longer with turkey tail in your body than not. Hopefully we'll start adapting some sort of studies and research here in America to figure out if turkey tail is something we should all be taking every single day, and especially people that are going through treatment for cancer, as it's a powerhouse for your immune system. There's lion's mane, that's great for your brain health, your neuronal growth and projection, your nerve growth factor. We're also finding out through a little study we just did with the NFL, some NFL players here in Colorado, my own self-funded study with a friend of mine at Arsenal Sports, using lion's mane to help reverse cognitive decline and physical dysfunction. We're just now going through that data and finding out some other things that we didn't know lion's mane could do that it's doing. But again, another one that's very well known and really good for you. It's functional, but it's also gourmet. You can cook it, and it's just a delicacy. It is like one of the most amazing things you'll ever eat if cooked correctly. Then you got reishi. That's what I'm wearing here around my neck. The mushroom of immortality. It's great for your nervous system. I say it's like a warm blanket for your nervous system. There's studies coming out showing that it helps create the calm and the relaxation to ease you into a good night's rest and sleep, which sleep issues are huge in our culture. That's one of our best products, is our sleep product that has lion's mane, reishi, and L-theanine. I could go on and on with the mushrooms. They're amazing. We're finding out more and more each day about new organisms and new mushrooms, and discovering more, and finding out that even there's dark mushrooms, like dark matter. You can't quantify how much there is. There's actually we may be living on a rock that's basically more percentage fungi than we ever could imagine. And that's why I'm such a firm believer in the benefits they bring us as humans, is because they are intermixed and working collaboratively and connected to every other living thing on this planet. So they know everything. They know everything about me. They know how heavy my left foot lands as opposed to my right. They know what's in my urine because I like to pee outside. They know like what a strawberry tastes like. They got it down. And so I'm a firm believer in this, and it's been a lot of fun to bring this to people. And again, the education is really the huge part as more people are learning the difference between psychoactive components and psilocybin and the non-psychoactive components that we're still learning about in all these other beautiful organisms that will not get you high and won't have you trip out. I always tell people the only thing you'll be tripping about is how good you feel if you start taking these.
Yeah, it's if for the listeners, if you take 2 hours or just take a evening one day out of the week, and if you have never nerded out, watch it. Whether it's a couple documentaries or I'm sure Jake would have a plethora of resources. Is like take out and nerd out a little bit about just how expansive mushrooms are in just about every natural ecosystem there is. Because most listeners are like, yeah, there's something that just grow and you can eat them, or the psychoactive ones, you can have a psychoactive response. That is just the tip of the amount of things that mushrooms, when you a functioning ecosystem, when you look at how integral they are to that ecosystem, it'll absolutely bend your mind. And as a nerd, like I've spent a lot of time, and Jake probably 10x what I have, just nerding out on it. And there really is no end to how integrated they are into a sustainable ecosystem. So yeah, really, really fascinating.
Paul Stamets says they can heal you, they can kill you, and they can take you on a spiritual journey. It's like a great, our earth would be covered in waste if not for mushrooms. They decompose everything that dies. They give life back to the death. And like, it's a really cool, Fantastic Fungi would be the documentary I say would be the best one to start with.
Exactly.
If you watch Fantastic Fungi by Louis Schwartz, it's fascinating. You'll be, your head will go, whoa. You'll start like researching these things, and then you'll start seeing them everywhere you go in a hike and like look around. They'll just start popping up everywhere. And yeah, there's something magical about them for sure.
Jake, something we talk a lot because it's so near and dear to us. We talk with a lot of guests about is kind of the entrepreneurial journey. So obviously your passion for the actual product you're selling, it's so obvious, it seeps through everything you're saying. But how has the journey been as an entrepreneur for you, kind of transitioning out of football and now helping run, or if not run, the company? Like, what has that journey been? And we know, and Bear more intimately even than myself, kind of the roller coaster ride that can be. How has that journey been for you?
Oh man, we talked earlier about your career and planning for your post career. Like, damn, I should have gone to some of those business summit meetings where they provided us with access to some of the leading corporations in the world, would give us little seminars on business and how to handle this, that, and the other. And, I didn't go, man. I was going to go golf on the off day. I wasn't going to go sit through a seminar, but I wish I had now, just with the fact that not being a self-promoted myself as like an entrepreneur, but getting these opportunities, because there's so much that goes into business. I mean, you got to have a product that you believe in, is I think the most important thing. Like, if you don't believe in what you're doing and what you're making, whatever that may be, if you're not a firm believer, then you can't do it. You can't convince people. You can't really show them with passion how important your product is. And so that's really nothing that I had to go to business school to learn. I've always been passionate about what I'm involved in and believe that it can be successful. And with the mushrooms, I feel them working in my body and feel the benefits myself. So I have to share this. Part of the entrepreneurial journey is the business side of things, where you're balancing books and you're hiring and you're having CEOs and all that. Like, my role in this whole thing is the fact that I've met a lot of people. I've been able to carry myself in my career with respect for how I treated people, and that respect comes full circle as I am a connector. I'm able to open the doors necessary to get on a podcast like this. Like, there's a lot of companies out there that would this podcast for a person in their business to come on and talk about their company would be the next best thing that they could find. And so these opportunities come around because of my football career and the fact that I'll never not be former NFL football player Jake Plummer. So I utilize that, and I use it to my advantage, and I open those doors and get them to the people I need. And Meanwhile, learn a lot about business, learn a lot about marketing, learn a lot about who you hire and how to form the company and like making sure you do all that stuff right as you learn as you go. But my entrepreneurial sense is more, if I see something that I really like and I love and I believe in, then I get behind it. So right now, that's a sports tech playbook that has been going on for about 8 or 9 years called Ready List Sports. We've merged with Score Break. And so that's like another entrepreneurial endeavor into the tech space, which I don't know a lot about tech, but I know a lot of football coaches. I know a lot of football players that would benefit from this. So I feel it's important to get behind it. Then there's the UMBO that we started, and we're doing this with a 4-man team. As you guys know, being slim and the team with guys doing it, you've got to play a lot of different roles. I'm the delivery guy sometimes, picking up bars out in Fort Lupton and driving them over to Black Lab Sports so they can ship them to REI. I mean, whatever you got to do, you got to do it, right? And then, with the farm, Michael Love Farm, that we started to grow these things was hopefully to be vertically integrated with UMBO. And we've reached that through the fact that I brought in the right people. And that's one thing as a quarterback that I learned that could definitely transfer into the business world is I know what my role is. And I know that as a quarterback, I had to do a lot of things, oversee a lot of things. I had to be a pinnacle, the face, the guy that was consistent day in and day out. But I also had to rely on my left tackle and my receiver to do their job too, and the GM to do his job, and the janitor to get our locker rooms clean and make sure guys weren't just making a mess because, oh yeah, he's going to clean it. Like there's so much that goes into that I've learned, what my role is, what the more you can do, the better when you can step up and fill the role of somebody else. And so that's what we've been doing. We're putting the Michael Love juice in the UMBO bottles now, which is really cool. And I go out there to the farm every once in a while. So the mushrooms that I'm helping, inoculate and grow and dehydrate, they're going into these bottles so that the story is there of that I really care about this. And yeah, my business acumen is not high when it comes to the, CPGs and ROIs and all those acronyms. I kind of like, hey, excuse me, what do you mean by that? I'll ask those questions, but I'm learning as I go. And I know like when you believe in something and you have the right people around you, that success is bound to come your way. And that's the way I feel with the guys we've put in our team. As you know, the team is the most important thing, is having guys that really believe and we're willing to do the work.
Well, I think one thing I want to add there, Jake, that you absolutely have and is very difficult for a lot of companies to really exemplify is authenticity, right? It's so easy to tell by how you speak to this that it's authentic to you and you're not having to sell it at all, right? It's genuine. And, some advice I'd give to you, having done this for 12 years, is the consumer really connects with that authenticity. And again, you can't, there's no fancy advertisement or fancy marketing technique that can recreate that. So really lean into that in everything that you do, because like that is your superpower. That is the moat around your castle as you build this thing. And it's just cool to hear it. Even like with the playbook thing, like again, like that was your life, right? And I don't know the total specifics of it, but I'm guessing you identified a need based on someone who watched tape for 20 straight years. As a quarterback, you guys have to watch even more tape than we do. And you said, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we had this, and that? I mean, you identified a need, but it was so genuine because it's coming from a guy who was, in a film room for most of his early adult life. You know what I mean? So very cool to hear your passion around it. And, the fact that you guys are able to get vertically integrated and, sounds like you purchased a farm. Like how cool is that? Now you control your production, and that can be a pain in the butt. But at the same time, you can increase your margins there, and you can, control the supply chain a little bit more. And it's also just a cool thing that you're owning it. So you know exactly where it came from. So then when the consumer gets it, there's that stamp of trust of like, guys, we grew this on our own damn farm. This isn't coming from. So I love the story, man. And I'm definitely going to check out the site. I wrote down the reishi mushroom thing because I'd love to try that sleep product. So I'm definitely going to get that. But those bars sound good too, because I get hangry when I don't snack. So maybe that'll be my my mid-afternoon snack here. But it's just man. Really cool, man.
We made those bars so that you don't just have to tolerate them, but you actually crave them. So we've had a few people say, yeah, I love your candy bars you guys are making. I'm like, they're not candy bars, bro. They have a short shelf life, no preservatives. They're made with honey and nuts and a mix of functional mushrooms. So yeah, we'll get you guys some stuff for sure to try out. You don't have to go order. We'll send you guys a little something, and
Well, we would love.
appreciate it.
We're actually putting together kind of like it's like a well, you would call it traditionally like a corporate wellness package. It's really, we just have a list of companies where we can add, if you're willing to keep this kind of ongoing, like we would add this code. We have 70 employees now, so we'll add this to like that package. But then we have like we do like monthly snacks, and a big initiative this year is to better align those with who we are as a company, meaning like we're a fitness company, like very much in the athletic space, outdoor space, tactical space. So I would love for us to then kind of, whether it's wholesale or just even we'll just buy it at with that 15% discount, we can keep that as a reoccurring for our employees here, because I mean I believe in it. I've used it for 20 years in my life. So I'd love to get some of our employees exposed to it as well.
Right on. Right on. Yeah. Anybody's suffering with sleep issues, we've had a lot of success with that. Our sleep formula.
What's that called? I know you said it's the reishi.
It's Myco Rest, the replenishing sleep.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just got reishi, lion's mane, and L-theanine, and it's non-drowsy. There's times I've taken them in the middle of the day if I'm a little amped up, maybe I had too much coffee, or if I'm anxious a little bit.
Okay.
And it helps initiate just a calm. And sleeping is so important so that you recover. And we have, our culture is usually you're looking at your phone and then you lay down and go to bed, and it's like we're under attack even while we sleep. So it's good to get that really good replenishing rest.
What do you think, Tone?
Love it.
You got anything else?
No,
there's a lot of other roads we could go down, but I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, man, that might get us.
I know. I could sit and we could open up a couple can of worms and go on for 3 hours here. But yeah, no, Jake, I really appreciate you. Like Bear said, just your willingness to go from what I know, like kind of the part you played as an NFL player, and then willing to take that mask off, set it on the shelf, and know that it's still there. And definitely one, as you network, you probably have to put on every once in a while, but your willingness to kind of step into a new reality and being willing to do that. I know a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do that, because what you're doing now took a level of courage, because I'm sure there are people that look at it like, what the hell is Jake Plummer doing? He's growing mushrooms. He's wearing a mushroom around his neck. So just the authenticity and you willing to step into that and kind of say like, hey guys, like this is where my passion lies, I think is a good template for other people to see as they go through big transitions in their life.
Yeah. Thank you for that, man. I really, I commend you guys too for following your hearts and putting out a product and not just selling a product, but doing good behind it. I mean, the work you're doing to get back to the vets, a part of our society that needs a lot more love and care. And hopefully, these initiatives that are coming around, the more we talk about it, the more people hear it, the less foreign and scary it sounds. So yeah, every day the life presents itself, and I would be remiss without saying that I'm having fun doing this. And that really was why I played ball. It's why I try to do anything, is for the fun of it. And it's fun to go grow mushrooms and talk about them. And my kids laugh because it's like, Dad, all you ever do is talk about mushrooms to everybody. You talk about mushrooms to the grocery checker. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if they ask, I'm going to talk. I mean, this is something that it's a path that I feel lucky to go down, and to be able to initiate a little bit of a better feeling, or maybe a little health shift in people it's a true gift. It means playing ball was all worth it. And that ball is always going to be there to precede me. As you know, I went to the Peach Bowl and got caught on the sideline, and boom, we did a lot of business at Umbo because people were seeing me out there. So you got to use it and hold it, with reverence in your hand as a gift. But what we're doing is good, and no one can stop that.
Well, let's final question just for fun. Do we like the college football playoff?
I like it.
I like it. Are you digging it?
I love it.
Yeah.
For years I've been wanting to see some little guys get a chance. Without the playoffs, I don't think ASU or BSU is even in that conversation. But now with the playoffs, so you earn your right to make it into that top 12. You get a chance to play for the national title, and there's always going to be people mad about it or left out or feeling on the fringe. But at this moment, there are teams that are playing for the national title, and they have to earn it. They don't just get chosen by a group of writers or a ranking system. My whole My only thing is like these college athletes making this money now and hoping that they're getting some guidance and some people talking to them about the future and the fact that they're so young, they're 20 years old. You know, when you're 50, 30 years from now, you're going to probably want to have put some money away for the knee replacements or the spinal fusion, or maybe by then we've worked with AI and mushrooms enough to know how we can reverse this damage, which is exciting because there are studies going on that are showing signs of hope that we can reverse some of this damage. But yeah, I'm not against the college playoffs. I'm really actually excited about it, and great timing for my alma mater ASU to have a good season and make it and be in the conversation, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, obviously by the time this airs, it'll be over. But Notre Dame played last night. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I played ball at Yale, but my brother went to Notre Dame, and we grew up about an hour from South Bend. So growing up, we were all Notre Dame fans. But they lost to Northern Illinois in week 2. And then they went on to win 12 straight. In the old system, they're out of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Now they're a 7 seed. They've won 12 straight. They've looked pretty damn good, even though last night they had a bunch of guys injured. They squeaked one out. So it allows teams that in the old way would have never even had a chance. Because, hey, they're college kids. You lose one game and you're out. Like, that shouldn't be like that. You know what I mean? You go 11-1 and you miss the playoffs. Like, are you kidding me? But in the old way, it would have been Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, the usuals, because they got a stronger, schedule. So I'm stoked on it. I think they got to make a few tweaks, but it's definitely fun that you have like the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, but they're like they're levels of the bracket, right? And then so Notre Dame has won the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl in the same season. Now they're competing for the national championship on January 20th. So it's just I think it's great for the sport. But to your point, the whole it's wild, man. Imagine being a coach now. Imagine being a coach where you have to now baby these kids, because if they're not a starter and like you yell at him at practice, the portal opens and he's gone because he's getting, offered $2 million, by some other school. And man, what a nightmare it would be for a coach to have to manage that. But to your point, yeah, just the financial management. I wish these guys understood the power of compound interest. And even in the military, I would give a finance class to my guys mainly about compound interest and how powerful it can be, because these guys someone would get $100,000 re-sign bonus, in the SEAL teams, tax free. And they'd be like, all right, well, I need to go buy that $90,000 Ford Raptor. And it's like, hey, man, how about we take 70 of that and put it in your savings account and let it get 10% for the next 20 years? And then you're going to be like, holy shit, I have like $1 million in the bank. And it's like, that's not how a 23-year-old Navy SEAL thinks, man. You know what I mean? They're like, I'm going to go get that Raptor. So we deal with the same shit, Jake, as your guys did, especially the younger guys that, maybe weren't as financially literate in the beginning because they think that money's going to be there forever. But I know they're trying to set up systems and teach the guys, but you can only teach them so much. There's plenty of stories.
Yeah, the coaches have their hands full, but I think there's an equalizer there with guys chasing money and wanting to leave. Good, go. If you don't want to be here, there's the door. If you want to build something and stick around and build a culture, and our team from 96, 97 Rose Bowl is still lauded as one of the greatest teams in ASU history, even though we lost that game. It had national title implications. And so these kids, if they realize how special this time is, that forever they're going to be remembered. This team that went to the Peach Bowl this year at ASU, they're going to be talked about forever, even though they lost that game. And that's something you really can't put a price tag on. But yeah, they're doing a good thing there. And all in all, I mean, football's still football. It's the same as it was when I was playing. It really hasn't changed much. It's still entertaining. Now there's just a lot more money put into it.
Well, I had some buddies that from the SEAL teams that they're not they're still active, but they're kind of like recruiters. It's like a scout team thing, and they went to the University of Colorado to do a day with the team, and they got them in the pool and got them uncomfortable and did a bunch of wind sprints and like a little mini beat down for the guys' mental toughness day or whatever. But my buddy said he rolled through the parking lot, and there's literally Rolls Royces, and he's like like it was crazy. And this is that these are no shit 19-year-old kids at the University of Colorado. Like obviously it's become a pretty good program, but it's still like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's driving in a Rolls Royce, so he said like that blew him away, because he was a college football player too when he was, and he was just like, dude, it was the craziest thing. But good for them. Obviously the colleges were making a ton of money, and for the guys to be able to, take a few chips off the table, I think overall is a good thing, but it'll be curious to see how it evolves, because it's just going to become an arms race where these big donors, hey, we need that quarterback. And now, a 5-star who's a junior in high school is going to get a $20 million offer to go to Alabama. You know what I mean? And then what?
Well, he's going to get paid in high school.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's so like, where's the cap? Because if there's no like salary cap like in the NFL, what would a billionaire alumni pay for a 5-star, right? Because if you're a billionaire, what is $20 million? Who cares?
Exactly.
You at that point, it's just a hobby. It's fun, So anyway, and we saw that with Michigan with the 5-star with that billionaire family, right? So anyway, I could go all day. The pre-workout's starting to kick.
It's interesting because why do you play? What motivates you to play the game? I played because I wanted to win a national title and a Super Bowl. Money wise, okay, cool. You're going to pay me. I still am going to play the game with all my heart and soul. Don't really care about all that other BS. And so it's hard to see where you learn right away what these kids really want. Do they want the money, or do they want to come in here and be a badass on the field and play ball? And so it could be very, like I said, an equalizer where you see right away what those guys are. But all in all, we all still turn the TV on.
Oh yeah. It's
still
fun.
get a little excitement from it.
Love it. Well, hey, Jake, thank you so much, man. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. You got an ally here at Born Primitive. For those checking out, don't forget Born 15 at the website. Getumbo.com.
Yep.
We'll make sure that's in the show notes. And just appreciate you shedding some light on obviously the educational side of the benefits of the products, but everything else you're doing, Jake, it's genuine and authentic, and we really appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been a blast. And you guys, if you need anything from me, I'm always around. Appreciate the intro and love what you guys are doing too. Keep it up. The vets need support. So appreciate your service and time.
Thanks so much,
Jake.
man. Later.
All right. Peace, love, and mushrooms.